The internet, where everyone has an opinion and people get advice from anonymous strangers. But it doesn't have to be all bad if you know the right questions to ask and have the right level of skepticism to not blindly accept the replies when it involves your personal finances. Joe Saul-Sehy, the founder of Stacking Benjamins and Money with Friends, gets out of the basement to join the show to discuss how we can use the internet and make the most of forums, social media, and Facebook groups. Welcome to the MapleMoney Show, the podcast that helps Canadians improve their personal finances to create lasting financial freedom. I've talked about robo-advisors often on the show and over at the blog as well, especially our sponsor Wealthsimple. But I guess it's a new option and you might have some questions. Wealthsimple now lets you book a 15-minute call with an experienced portfolio manager with no obligation to set up an account. To see if robo-advisors make sense for you, head over to maplemoney.com/wealthsimplechat. That's maplemoney.com/wealthsimplechat. Now here's Joe. Hi, Joe. Welcome to the Maple Money Show.
I'm so happy I'm here. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you. I wanted to have you on the show today because I wanted to give you a bit of a soapbox. We had talked about this a bit before, but I want to kind of go through, everybody has their, well, not everybody, a lot of people have their time on internet forums, kind of asking questions beyond personal finance too, but even within personal finance. But I know you've seen a lot of interesting things online, and I just wanted to kind of go through what your thoughts are with people going on these forums or Facebook groups, and what kind of advice they should be getting.
You know, it's funny, Tom. I love it. First of all, I think it's cool that with technology being, I could tell old guy stories all day. But I love it, the fact that you don't have to have people locally to get information. I mean, information's becoming more and more of a commodity because of the fact that it's so widely available. And I can ask pointed questions to a group of people and very, very quickly get an answer. And you look at some groups like the Choose FI guys, Brad and Jonathan doing a heck of a job. Your group, our group, these communities of people online are great. But when you pull it back a little bit and you think about you as somebody trying to reach a set of goals, I think there's also some dangers that maybe we should dive into, because one mentor told me a long time ago, said, you want to have a group of really smart people around you, like your inner circle. And sometimes the stuff I see online and that you see online isn't stuff that my inner circle would tell me.
Yeah, fair enough. So is this sort of this decade's version of a water cooler talk?
I think it is, don't you?
Probably, because I remember, when people actually talked at a water cooler, you'd literally go up to your coworker and start talking about your finances, or at least I did. Maybe I get there's still the whole money's a taboo subject as well, but at least in my circle of coworkers, we were certainly talking money.
Yeah, no, it is that, and I love the stories that people share. I love the successes, the failures, like going back directly to the Choose FI forums. I mean, I absolutely love the Brad's, what's one thing that you did this week that moved the ball forward. I mean, I love that. I love thinking that way. I remember a mentor of mine telling me that every day to lay one brick. You've got all the stuff you got to do. Whatever you're doing, lay one brick toward the goal. And even though we overestimate what we can do in an hour and what we can do in a day, in a week, we always underestimate what we can do over a year or a decade, because we're not focused on that long-term goal. And just, 25 minutes, 30 minutes of laying one brick every day toward the long-term goal makes that happen.
Yeah, I've seen that too, where you're right. If I have this huge to-do list, it kind of makes me not do anything. But if you can kind of make sure you get that one thing out, sometimes even one bigger thing a week, but just this idea of taking a step and not not just kind of getting overwhelmed by all of it.
Yeah, that stuff is really good. The part that I really dislike, if we're going to go into what I dislike, and this is in every form, this is not just a not just a Choose FI thing. We have it in our Stacky Benjamins forum. Sometimes you probably have it in the Maple Money group.
Yeah.
The frustration that I see often is people don't think about what I said earlier, which is have really smart people around you. I don't know, and because we're on a Canadian show, I'm going to use a Canadian. Usually I talk about Earl and Peoria, but we'll make it Earl from Timmins.
Thank you for regionalizing it for us.
Yes, I'm great about that because I've been to Timmins. I went on a fishing trip and it was fantastic. But Earl in Timmins doesn't know anything about my financial situation, doesn't know anything about me. And yet Earl spends all day on Facebook, is in the community, and has a definite feeling about what the right thing is for me to do, which is ridiculous. I mean, if you think about it, number one, why am I asking Earl for advice? Number two, why am I listening to Earl's advice? I don't know anything about Earl's credentials. I don't know anything about Earl's background. I used to, when I was a financial planner, we'd always say, beware of broke professors. And a broke professor is that dude who knows everything. And we all have somebody like this in their life. And usually back in the day, this was the water cooler person. Yeah. They're always hanging out the water cooler like, well, I'll tell you what I do with that car. Tell you what I do. I do this and that and that. You know, if you did those three things, your car could go from just crappy to awesome, Tom. How come you haven't done that with your car? Tell you what I do with that deck out back. I do this. Man, if I ran this place, here's what I do. And you look and you think and you're like, why the hell isn't that dude running the place? Or why isn't that guy working on his car? Or why doesn't he even have a deck on his house? But he certainly has an opinion about mine. And so I don't know. I see too much of that. And that really frustrates me. Like thinking that this person that doesn't know me is going to be able to help me solve my problem.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned you were a financial planner, and a financial planner or ex-financial planner as well. Here, I know Jim Yee at Retire Happy. One of the things he often says is when people ask him questions, it's even when you know it, it's not that simple. You got to ask 8 questions back, because, like you pointed out, like you don't know all the details, like what's your retirement goal, and how much money do you have now, and how much do you make? Like it's not a simple question if someone just comes up to you and says, well, how much money do I need to retire? Even as a planner, there's a slew of questions you got to kind of return with that, right?
Well, it's funny because our mutual friend Paula Pant and I had a long discussion about this, that often people are asking the wrong question. And that's the first thing that I think you have to do. I mean, people online Earl and Timmins will answer your question. A good advisor will do what your friend talks about, which is, are you asking the right question in the first place? And a lot of times the questions we get are not the right question. And I'll give you an example of that. There was a guy on a forum recently talking about how his kid plays soccer and he wants his kid to drink Gatorade, but Gatorade is too expensive. How do I find a cheaper way to get Gatorade?
Okay.
There were like 57 answers to that question. I'll throw this out there. I don't think that's the right question to ask. My question to ask back to you, if you ask me that question, is why are you focused on 30-cent decisions? Because you only have so much time in your life. And if you spend all day tripping over dollars to pick up nickels, you're never going to get anywhere. And so people that worry about 20 cents, and don't get me wrong, you know, I mean, there might be somebody listening to this, but because I was there was a time when every single penny mattered, and I didn't know how I was going to eat in 2 weeks. So for those people, take this with a grain of salt, because for you, I get it. But the way the guy asked the question and then his responses later on were clear, he's just focused on the wrong stuff. He's not focusing on how do I earn more money to not worry about Gatorade. How do I worry about, you know, the 3 big things you and I know, Tom, are housing, your transportation, and your overall grocery bill, not just Gatorade,
yeah.
but how do I just make that overall grocery bill smaller? So I think we need to focus more on what the right question is to ask.
Yeah, for sure. I've kind of said on the show in the past too, where I started off being very frugality minded, and halfway through kind of started heading towards the side of, oh, well, you can actually just make more money. And then that actually solves a lot of problems. Obviously there's tons of different ways of doing that, whether it's sort of improving your career situation or doing side hustles. But
And it's
yeah,
amazing. It's amazing, Tom, how easy that is. I mean, you've seen the statistics that I think the number was something like 65% of bosses want to give you a raise. They might not have the ability to do it themselves. They might have to talk to somebody, but because you haven't asked and you haven't given them the ammunition to go to their boss to help them give you a raise, they don't give you one. But if you asked, they'd be happy to do it, and we don't do that. Or the side hustle stuff, going out and finding more money is so much easier than answering, looking through 57 answers to how I can save 10 cents on not you doing Gatorade and finding an off brand.
Well, speaking of the idea of asking for a raise, in my career, I had asked for raises twice, and one time for sure it was 5 digits of a raise that they gave me.
Wow.
And I don't remember the other time, but it was certainly a yes. They were basically the only times I really got beyond that. Here's 2%, here's 3% annually. I really had to go out and ask for it. So I don't want to know what I would have been making if I had just quietly never said anything and just kept going. So it definitely helps to ask.
Well, you think about it, the way to get a raise is to apply for the next job, but you have to apply for the next job. I mean, for a lot of people, that's the way they're going to get the big bump. The big thing for me, I just yesterday went and saw that new movie, Rocket Man.
Okay.
Elton John, the story of Elton John. And a guy told him early in his career, he said, you got to kill the person you were to become the person you want to be. And I think about George R.R. Martin and Game of Thrones, right? You got to kill your darlings. And when the Red Wedding happened, I threw that damn book because I couldn't watch it because I couldn't go through the emotions. But when I read the books, I threw the book across the room. I'm sitting in bed with Cheryl, my spouse, and I just threw the book. I was so angry. But George said, that's what made it exciting, right? You didn't know who was going to live. But you think about your life, and there are bad habits that you have, and you have to kill off some of those bad habits to become the person that you want to become in the future.
Mm-hmm. Don't mean to go on a big tangent, but I think I'm going to have to read the books just for a better ending than what I got as a TV watcher.
Well, at least one that George R. R. Martin likes. I'll tell everybody, just to continue your tangent for a second. That a funny story, during one of the episodes where they were going off the rails, George R. R. Martin, apparently, I didn't see the tweet, I just heard the third hand. George R. R. Martin tweeted about how great the Last Kingdom show was. And it is great. I don't know if you've seen The Last Kingdom, but if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, The Last Kingdom's phenomenal.
Maybe I'll have to watch that next.
It's about the Vikings coming to England in the 800s. And once again, the same stuff. People die that you don't want to die. There's lots of intrigue, very flawed characters, really, really good story. And because they've dedicated more money to it every year than the season before, they're getting ready for season 4. Every season, it's one of the few shows I've seen where season 1 was fantastic. And every season actually has gotten better, not worse or the same. They've gotten more exciting. So
great.
Yeah.
To get us back on topic. What are some other things you're seeing online? Like I get this. One of the ones that's in my head is sort of this investing advice. It's probably one of the bigger areas where it can go pretty wild. I've mentioned on the show before, I knew a guy that apparently the way it makes it sound, at least, is pretty much all invested in Apple and tells everybody they should be invested in Apple still. So what about that kind of person, the stock tip guy?
I get so frustrated with those those pieces of advice, only because the first thing you're trained to ask as a financial advisor is begin with the end in mind, right? Start off with what's the goal? How much money is the person saving toward that goal? And then what's the minimum return that we can receive to actually make that goal a reality? Mm. And then there's a cool thing. Modern portfolio theory shows us that there's this cool line called the efficient frontier. And there's places all over the internet where you can look at the efficient frontier, but you take the rate of return you need, you look at the efficient frontier, and that certainly isn't exact on how you're going to get there in the future, but that will show you very closely how you would have gotten there in the past, which is the closest thing you can get to an optimal portfolio. What's funny is it's very easy to find. It isn't hard. There's plenty of retirement calculators and whatever calculators from all the asset management companies in Canada and in the US. They all have these online calculators. It's easy to do. And yet, the number one piece of advice I hear is don't do this thing that's going to take you 12 minutes. Put all your money in one Vanguard mutual fund. I understand the one Vanguard mutual fund approach is fine. I think the guy that preaches that is fine. My question is, if it's going to take you 12 minutes to optimize your portfolio, why would I not do that versus putting all my money in one fund? Which, don't get me wrong, the one fund approach is a fine approach. That particular fund, VTSAX, right? The Vanguard Total Stock Market Fund. Put all your money in that fund, you're going to do fine. So Mr. J.L. Collins, the book, The Simple Path to Wealth, fantastic. My only problem with that book is it ain't that hard to go a little bit beyond it.
Yeah, we have the same thing here. We have different ETFs just in Canadian dollars, basically, but we can still, there's certainly a US ETF. And we have, I think it's VGROW is a Vanguard growth one that covers the entire market. So that's probably a decent, here I am giving the Watercooler talk, but that's a decent single ETF to go into.
No. And it's historic. You're well diversified. You're going to get some international exposure because some of these are going to be really broad companies that span the globe. So you're going to get stuff that isn't going to treat you badly, and you're going to get decent returns. It just isn't that hard to optimize it. The other thing, a little bit tangentially, but not too far, still on investment advice. This is a comment that always scares me when I see it in forums. My advisor did -2%. What do you think I should do? -2% over the last year. What do you think I should do? Well, number one is you have to look at what the market did. Number two is I have no idea what you're invested in. I have no idea what your goal is and how far away it is. And yet Earl and Timmons is going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. Because my position, Tom, what I think you're asking, really, the real question here is, should I fire my advisor? Right? That's exactly. And by the way, if you're asking Earl and Timmons, should I fire my advisor? You know what you need to do? You need to fire your advisor. Because there's some underlying reason you're asking that. Like if you trust Earl and Timmons, you're going to ask Earl and Timmons, hey, is this what we should be doing? Tell me why. Tell me what the strategy is. But if you don't trust Earl, or if you don't trust your advisor enough to ask them that, Earl's going to tell you what you want to hear, which is go fire him.
Yeah. Is that always a bad thing though? Like if you think or maybe not that you think, if you sort of have this idea in the back of your head of what you should do, if you have a sounding board and someone at least gives you the same answer, then it's not necessarily a bad thing to make you a little more confident. Maybe the problem though is when you get a totally unexpected answer.
Well, no, you can ask it. Just realize that an online community usually says the bent toward in my community at Stacking Benjamins, your community in the Choose FI forums, wherever, those communities have a bent of I don't need a financial advisor. And the reason, and by the way, what's funny about that is they do have a financial advisor. They have that forum. They're using that forum as their financial advisor. Yeah. And I will throw out there that if you have really smart people around you, they're going to beat asking random strangers in a forum. And again, going back to the forum's not bad, but I do think that having smart people around me that know me is a better thing. So you're going to get answers, but not from people that know what that relationship should be, what that relationship, like where you are according to your milestones. Like, let me give you an example from back in the day when I was a financial planner. If you're my client, Tom, you've got a goal that's 15 years away. Mm-hmm. We would set up these milestones, right? And every 6 months, we'd look at the milestone and we'd look at where you're at. And we'll see, are we on the path, or are we ahead, or are we behind on that path? And then if you're behind, we're going to make a totally different decision than if we're ahead. Now, I'll give you an example. Let's say that you're ahead by $20,000 toward your retirement goal. Well, cool. We can do a few things. You can, let's say you've got some short-term things that you want to do, like redo your kitchen. We could do that. We could slow down your retirement savings and spend money and let the milestones get back in line, right? The second thing we could do is we could pull that retirement goal closer. We could say, hey, Tom, how would you like to push that up by 3 months? Yeah, let's do that. So you keep doing the same thing. Third thing is leave that goal where it is and just spend more money when you get there. So instead of an expectation of I'm going to spend X, I'm not going to go on a few luxury vacations, or I'm going to spend more every year during those years when I'm done working. You all of a sudden have all these moves you can make. Well, what's funny is without knowing those milestones, we can't go through those emotionally like we just did. Like, I bet anybody listening to this just went, oh, here's the one I'd do. Well, how do you know which one you do if you've never done those milestones? And the people in these forums haven't done that. They have no idea. So when they say my advisor got -2, what else is your advisor doing? I mean, and this is another misconception that I see a lot in online forums. When I was a financial advisor, helping somebody manage their money was not most of my job. Most of my job was you and I would meet and we'd talk about how you spent money the last 6 months versus what your values were. Because that's something you can control. Have you gotten a raise at work? What are things looking like? Are there opportunities where you want to make more income, or the income you make is doing something that you love instead of something that you hate, right? So we talk about those things. Any big expenses coming up. We'd look at your insurances and we'd look at your estate plan. My job was to be your agent so that you're a rock star. And whenever there's an opportunity for you to do better, my job is to call you or during our meetings to say, hey, here's how we're going to do this the right way. I'm going to hook you up with person A to buy your, to buy your car or do whatever the thing is, do your estate plan. I'm going to make sure you've got the right people plugged in at the right stuff so that you can do what's best for you.
This kind of brings me back to the frugality mindset. People don't want to spend that few $100s a year for a fee-only advisor. But if you look at the big picture, if you're ahead hundreds of thousands of dollars by retirement, like was that not a good investment to spend that $300-$500, whatever, to just have an advisor kind of review every once in a while with you?
I get it though. Well, I get it for a few reasons. There's a ton of reasons we're afraid. Number one is the person quotes this fee, which just seems huge. And I'm not really sure where the value is ahead of time, right? And I know that I've got to kind of go in blindly. I can maybe get a few referrals and talk to the person, but I also am a little afraid in my head that the person's just talking a good game. And once I give them my money's gone and now I'm worse off. So I get that piece. Here's the problem is that I'm very lucky. I got to work with really smart people who could do their financial planning themselves. And I often wonder why they had me. And so I started asking people why they had me. And they're like, because I can't watch everything. And I need somebody who's really smart, who's watching it when I can't. I need somebody who I can also turn to that will hook me up with the right people. Right. So, but that's a difficult thing. I went to a NASCAR race last weekend, and I don't want people to go, oh boy, I'm not listening to this. Hold on. If you don't know anything about racing, there's a good analogy, because I don't know a lot about racing, but a lot of people think that a race car driver drives the car, in a circle for X number of laps and then they're done. I actually got to be, there's a guy who listens to our show. I got to be a guest of his. He reached out to me and said, hey, would you like to come and tour our garage area and our pits? I'm a fan of your show and I'd love to have you. So, which was awesome. So I got this pass to the garage and he took me around. I didn't know that a race team has 25 people on it. There are 4 engineers, super smart people. There is a crew chief. There's the truck driver who, by the way, not only is the truck driver, also is the chef, is the go-getter, fetch this stuff. There's all the people that change the tires. There are mechanics in the pit. Every team has 25 people. You've got 24 people supporting this one person. It cost a bunch of money, but why do they do it? Because they make oodles of money if they win. And I thought that was a phenomenal analogy for, like, who do I want to be? Do I want to be the person who's always worried about nickel and diming my way to mediocrity? Or do I want to be the person who wins? And if I want to be the person who wins, unfortunately, I'm going to have to do a bunch of research to make sure I've got these good rock stars in my corner, and I'm going to have to pay them. And the frustrating part, and I know if you're listening to this as you're driving down the road, you're like, but I can't afford to pay them. Find somebody like you or me that was an up and comer once upon a time. You know what I mean? I mean, imagine, Tom, if somebody had bet on you when you were just starting to build the Maple Money empire. You know, look at how wealthy they'd be now.
Yeah, it's a good point about having a team. Because like, I don't know, people will go to a doctor, hopefully, when they have any health concerns. So why not see an advisor? And even when you mentioned the idea of someone that knows their stuff and they were coming to see you in the past, why not have that sounding board that does know what they're talking about? Even in my own life, whether it's money or the business side of things, it's still nice to talk to people, even though you kind of already know the answer. Yes. But sometimes it's just a matter of some perspective and confidence.
I talked to a former NFL star about 2 years ago, Philip Buchanan, and his advisors are not licensed advisors. Like, don't get me wrong, it doesn't have to be a licensed financial advisor in an office with a big company. He has a couple people that are multimillionaires that he asked them to mentor him. Mm-hmm. And so these multimillionaires became his advisors. It could be that, just surround yourself with some smart people, and I think you're going to do really well.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, thanks for being on the show. Can you let people know where they can find you online?
Well, you can find me at the, we call it the greatest money show on earth, like P.T. Barnum, the Stacking Benjamin show, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's very much a variety show, very lightweight. Tom, you've been on the show before. We need to have you back on very soon again.
Love to be on again, yeah.
To join our roundtable circus, but incredibly light. It's meant to be an analogy I like is an airport. Is that there's lots of planes going off. So we will have maybe 8 different ideas or guests on a week. And you pick the ones that you really like and get on that plane. But we're the airport. So we sometimes, if people come to us thinking that we're going to have these long in-depth discussions, they're not a great fit for us. But if they're coming to us as kind of a hub where we found great people like Tom to be friends that we have on the show, then that might be a great fit.
Great. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, Joe, for your thoughts on internet advice and showing us it's not all bad if you go in with the right perspective. And thanks to your buddy Earl from Timmins for stopping by as well. You can find the show notes for this episode at MapleMoney.com/Joe Saul-Sehy, or see all the episodes at MapleMoney.com/show. Now that you're ready to get into these online discussions, let's look at where you can head for decent conversations about money. Here in Canada, my favorites are the Canadian Money Forum and the Personal Finance Canada subreddit. Then on Facebook, I think Choosify Canada and Jessica Morehouse's Money Life Balance groups are great. And I hope you'll join us at the Maple Money community, which you can find easily by heading to MapleMoney.com/community. Thanks for tuning in. I'm looking forward to next week when Christy and Bryce from Millennial Revolution drop by and share their story of how they built a 7-figure portfolio that allowed them to quit their jobs and travel the world.